Welcome to Find, Tell, Share, the Storytellers podcast. I'm Chris Sissons, and my business is Market Together. I'm a local marketing coach, and I specialize in using stories for marketing, business development, and finding the real work that only you can do.
And I'm Jemma Rosenthal of Creative Hearts, and I'm a singer-songwriter, dancer, choreographer, actor, and I help people to find their voices and be their creative selves. On this show, we will be looking at how you can find stories, and later on Chris will be talking about prompts and places, and I will be singing and talking about how music can be used as a storytelling tool. So if you have a story, keep listening and be inspired by these different aspects of storytelling. We also have a fabulous guest on, which Chris is going to introduce.
Yes, I'm delighted to introduce our guest, Elaine Mitchell, who is an empowerment coach, hypnotherapist, speaker, and author from Sheffield. She's a proud Sheffielder with a love of helping people get past their emotional blocks in life to become more of who they are. Elaine works with individuals face-to-face over Zoom to enable them to love and live their life with the power of 3. 1, gratitude. 2, acceptance. And 3, detachment. She also presents to businesses and charities about confidence, well-being, positive mental health, self-worth, and much more. She combines her skills from coaching, healing, and therapies to ensure the clients receive a bespoke service that meets their needs and excels their expectations. Elaine loves, in no particular order, football, her dog Ruby, her kids Tom and Rose, and of course, a husband of over 30 years, Steve. She met him at Roxy's nightclub in the mid-80s and has stayed loyal to 80s music and style. So, Elaine, I understand you've locked yourself in a cupboard for the duration of the lockdown.
I'm like Harry Potter in reverse because my cupboard's at the top of the stairs. Not. So yeah, I have.
Yes, I found it particularly heartwarming that you call yourself a proud Sheffielder, and the first thought comes to my head is there any other type of Sheffielder?
Definitely, I think so, and I think it does come from when I first started speaking and presenting and coaching people, I suppose, and doing group workshops. Some people commented, and I was advised by some mentors that I should actually drop my accent, and that gave me a bit of a confidence knock. So yes, now I am very proud of who I am and my accent, and I generally say you might need to catch up with me on my, because I do talk fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I notice that, I do know that you just support the wrong football team, don't you?
No, I am very loyal to the wonderful Chris Wilder's Red and White Army.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, but this
Are you Wednesday, Chris? I didn't know this.
Theoretically, I was
okay.
Through genetical inheritance. I'm, and I have been to a match at Alderton. So
it's not Alderton; it's at Hillsborough.
Well, Hillsborough's.
They did dog racing at Allerton.
Well, I've been there as well. I've been around, you know.
Speedway.
I don't know about that. I'll have to try that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I used to love going to Speedway when I was younger. I used to love it. Brilliant.
So
my dad's a Blade, so I don't know if you see him at any of the matches. Obviously, they're not on at the minute. Are they on at the minute? Can you watch them anyway? Or
Well, you can watch them on the television.
Yeah.
So there's no crowds allowed in at the moment, which is very, very demoralising. It's quite hard work being a Blade at the moment.
Yeah.
But Blades do have something to be proud of, because their football ground is actually the very first one in the country. And it's got a fantastic football museum.
It's really good.
I'm not interested in football, but I could spend hours in that museum. It is really, really interesting.
It is.
So anyway, you out of the three, gratitude, acceptance, and detachment, which would you say is the most inspiring?
Inspiring, I would say detachment is the most inspiring, because once you've reached detachment, you are living in ease. And it is, I suppose, most people who are detached, people would aspire to be like them, in that they are. It's not being aloof. It's about being able to get along with anything and everything, as opposed to stressing about what people think, what people and circumstances mean, to the finite detail. It's about being able to just get on with it. And
I think that's really important for storytelling as well, because if you're telling a story to an audience, you need to be to some degree detached from the story that you're telling, because being overwhelmed by emotion doesn't help to communicate the story. Just getting it in the right balance is a key challenge to storytelling, but I'm sure one that we're all really keen to take on. So is detachment the goal then of your coaching? Is that the sort of ultimate goal, or because you've got gratitude and acceptance as well in that list?
Together, I work with gratitude, acceptance, and detachment, and I see gratitude as being the foundation, because with all my clients, we start with gratitude, and some of them love it, some of them hate it, but they all begin to see the actual benefit of it, because it's life-changing. If you've got gratitude in your life, and I'm not talking about the gratitude where you write 3 down a day and then tell people on social media that you're really grateful for 3 things or whatever. It's about it being a part of who you are, becoming part of your belief system, becoming part of your part of who you are, part of your values, and working on that so it oozes within you, not to a sickly degree. It's about being realistic, but when you've got gratitude in your life, you've also got resilience. You've got the ability to see things realistically for what they are. You've got the ability to know that this too will pass, and be able to really, really live in the moment, and to look at things from a totally different perspective. So gratitude is the foundation. Then I work with acceptance, because once you've been working on your gratitude and it becomes sort of second nature, then your acceptance is the one that you're there. You're accepting yourself for what you are, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. You're accepting things around you for what they are, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. It doesn't make no difference to how you go through life with regards to how someone else approaches you. And then detachment.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, because the roots of what you're saying go back hundreds, maybe thousands of years. It's in all the major world religions, isn't it? So anyway, I understand that you have a story for us, Elaine. So would you like to take us into the story?
And we've got to go back. We have to go back round about 7 years. And my daughter Rosa is 12. She is on the autistic spectrum, and 7 years ago we weren't aware of this. She was we knew there was something unique and special about her, But we just found that every day was a challenge. And the day that I'm going to tell you about, I think it was a Wednesday morning. So it was a hump day morning, and we were getting ready for school. Now, I had got a networking event to get to, and as usual, we were running pretty late. So we're getting ready for school. School's about a 7-minute walk and a 10-minute drive. So it's easier to walk to school than it is to drive to school. So we were on our way walking. She was dragging her feet. She was, I'm really not wanting to go to school today. All the other parents were on the way back from school because they'd dropped their kids off already. And I'd got this 5-year-old who already looked like she'd done a day at school because she's very unkempt, is my girl. A ponytail was halfway in, halfway out by the time we got out the door. Her socks were, one was up, one was down. And we were walking to school. Rather, I was hustling her to school, dragging her along and pulling her along. We get about 2/3 of the way to school, and we were in the middle of the estate that we walked through. All pedestrianised. We're walking through, and there's a little cul-de-sac. And as we were walking through the cul-de-sac, I realised that not only did she have a cardigan on inside out, not only did she have her a bag. She had a lunch bag with her, thankfully, but she'd not got her reading storybook, and she'd not got that with her. And anybody who knows that people who are on the autism spectrum, they like to have routine. And I pointed out it's absolutely fine to not have routine if she doesn't know that she's missing out on routine. And I am really not a routine type of girl. So we are complete opposites. We are absolute complete opposites, myself and my daughter. So I like to flow through life. I like to just go, get on with things, and see how things are. However, when I know I've got to be somewhere, I like to be there. When I know that I've got other stuff to do, I like to get it done. So naturally, like most mums, the stress levels started to bubble. They started to rise because she was walking, she was dawdling, she was walking along and looking at every single worm that was coming out of the grass because it had been raining. She was looking at the birds that were coming down to collect the worms that were having their breakfast brunch on the grass. She was looking at the people who were walking their dogs that morning and wanted to say good morning to every single furry animal that was there. And I was conscious that I had to be at a meeting in round about 40 minutes time with a 35-minute drive to my meeting. So I had approximately 2.5 minutes to get her into school, to get her coat hung up, straighten her ponytail out, and hand her over to the teacher. We were still at the stage that there was sometimes traumas in the morning, and she was that child who cried and wanted a mummy. So it was the stress was raising. Shall we say the stress was definitely raising for me. So time was a ticking. We were walking along, saying hello to the worms. She was splashing in the puddles, and I'm trying to drag her along this very short route, to be honest, but it could have been Route 66 for all she cared, because we were on the pace of Rosie and we were walking at a dawdle. I turned around and I realised that we had actually forgot her reading book. And as I said, she likes to have routine. And I realised we'd forgot it, and I let the words come out of my mouth that we had forgotten her reading book. So Q, she was, we must go back for it, Mummy. I need it for school. And I was like, no, we can't go back because we haven't got the time. The teacher will be fine. The teacher will be fine. But she was having a real issue and a tantrum about it. So eventually I decided that we would go back for it. And as we were walking back, and we were rushing at this time, we went back, we got the reading book, and then we started our journey again. All the dogs saying hello to them, everything. We were just, it was just the longest route to school in the universe. And as we were going along, we're walking along, and I began to get that stress levels rising and rising because I'd gone back for the reading book. I'd gone back for that. We'd got everything ready. I'd straightened a ponytail. I'd made sure a cardigan was now on the right way around, and we were heading along. And I'm trying to make her walk a little bit quicker, doing that mum thing when you're walking and you're dragging them by the wrist and not holding the hand in a loving way that you would normally do, dragging her by the wrist to try and make her walk a little bit quicker. And she was walking a little bit quicker, then she'd let go of me and find something else. And I was doing all the, come on, we need to get to school. We've got to get to school. It's 5 to 9. You should have been at school 5 minutes ago. We're now late. I've got to be in a meeting in 25 minutes and we are late again. And I'm going to be late for my meeting. And that means mummy's job's going to be blah, blah, blah. And I just totally was losing it, basically. All the other were walking from school because they dropped their perfect children off with their storybooks, with their lunches, with their ponytails in the right place and their cardigans on the right way. And they were all giving me that sympathetic mum look of, you're having one of those mornings, aren't you? And I was, yes, I am definitely having one of those mornings. We get to the cul-de-sac where we'd been before we had to do the turnaround, and there was no cars in the cul-de-sac, so I was a little bit in front of Rosette, and I'm saying, come on now, we've got to get to school, hurry up, I'm going to be late. And I was blaming her. I was absolutely, all my energy had gone from trying to get my daughter to school in a cool, calm way, and just being this crazy mama bear, just shouting, come on, let's get to school. We have to get to school. You have to get to school. It's you've got your book now. You've got your lunch. We need to get to school. Pull your cardigan up. Let's get on there. And I'm going to be late for my meeting, and I don't like being late for my meetings, and blah, 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 blah. And really, having a proper go at this poor little 5-year-old. And she just looked up at me. She threw down her book bag, threw down her lunch bag. The ponytail suddenly flew out of her hair as she just dramatically pulled the hair across her shoulder. She had quite long hair. Pulled the ponytail out and just burst into a rendition of "Let It Go" from Frozen. So she just went, "Let it go, let it go," and I stood there. And in a split second, I shifted from being crazy, banshee, angry mom who was like wanting to drag her daughter to school in any way, means or form, into thinking, do you know what? Big life lesson from daughter here. Because, yeah, let it go. What does it matter that we are 10, 5, 15, 20 minutes late for school? She's safe. She's well, she's fed, she's watered. Yes, her hair's a mess and her clothes are always look unkempt because that's her style. But she gave me a huge lesson in the way, in what I work with my clients, to be honest. She gave me a huge lesson of gratitude, acceptance and detachment. I should have been so grateful for all those worms in the morning and the entertainment that we had on the way. I should have accepted, yeah, we're going to be late this morning. That is it. We're going to be late. What can we do to make it the best thing and the best way that we can? And I should have been detached from my emotions around getting her to school, the stress levels that I were putting onto her and the stress levels that I were projecting forward, that I would have been late for the meeting. It was a networking meeting. It wasn't the fact that I was going to be late for an individual client or anything like that. So it wasn't the end of the world. But I'd let that moment, that conforming to getting to school on time, the conforming that we had to have the book bag, we had to have lunch, we had to have the ponytail in the right place, and we had to have the cardigan the right way around. I'd made that the whole issue and piled everything on top of that. And in that moment when she started singing Let It Go very, very well and very dramatically in the middle of the street with all the other parents walking back going, oh yeah, you're late today again. It was a life lesson that I continue to think back to. when the stress levels begin to rise, I think, do you know what? We need to make like Elsa more often. We need to make like Elsa and just let situations go, because she did well at school. Nothing dramatic happened because she was a little bit late. Nothing dramatic happened because I was late for my meeting. The world kept turning. Everyone kept breathing. And yeah, just let it go, folks. Let it go.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. It's so amazing how sometimes children can just inspire and just have that wisdom already in there and just know exactly what to say to just help in that moment. I think it was a lovely story, and the way you told it was just really endearing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and it's also a story that very clearly leads to your business, and paradoxically shows you in need of your coaching as much as anybody else, which I suppose is true for all of us.
Yeah,
we have to practice what we preach.
I remember when Chris, you were working on one of my stories. It had sometimes we have different characters in our life that where normally we're the coach, but then in the story sometimes we get coached by someone else in the family. So I think in mine it was my sister. But it's interesting how that, Chris, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that kind of idea of so if anyone's writing a story for the business, for example, how they can use that technique. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember that particular story. I see so many.
Where my sister played music, where I'm normally the one that helps people.
Oh, yes.
To sing, and then she basically helped me out. So I was just saying how Elaine's story is sort of similar, because normally she would be the coach position, but in this particular story it was actually her daughter in that position. But it's demonstrating how it can be helpful.
I mean, one of the things I
I
listen to lots and read lots of stories, and one of the things that often strikes me is that the story is often about one person, and that's the storyteller. But actually, and particularly looking at things like gratitude, acceptance and detachment, we're not on our own generally. I mean, a lovely example I had recently, and the person who told me this may be listening, so I should be very careful. We were discussing how she gets ideas for her business, and she says, I go for a walk, and she says, and I said, and that every day, and she said, yes, well, I take the dog. So I said, oh, there you are then. Your dog's your mentor, because you know you've got to take the dog for a walk every day, twice a day, and so the dog gets you out of the house, and it's your mentor. She said, well, not really. She said, I have immense trouble getting the dog out of the house. He much prefers to sleep in front of the fire. And then she said, mind you, though, once he gets out, he's into everything. Just like Rosie. All the earthworms, and he chases furry animals down burrows and things like that. I don't suppose Rosie did that, but and really enjoys himself. And I said, well, don't you see? It's a mutual mentorship. You're both helping each other. He's getting you out of the house, and you're getting him out of the house at the same time, and both of you benefit from one another in that way. So it doesn't, the other or others who are there and supporting you don't even need to be human. Because you can always help one another. Because you've got a dog.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yours is Ruby. Yeah.
She's Yeah, I've had dogs from being 13, I think. My sister bought me my first dog. He was a red setter called Max. Sadly, he didn't live very long. He was quite ill. But from being like 13, I've always had a dog. I think the longest time we've been without one has been 18 months before we got Ruby. And they've always been ish rescue ones. They've always been unwanted. So the loyalty is phenomenal. And Ruby, yeah, she's coming up for 13. She's a Springer Spaniel, still going. So she's not got quite as much spring as what she perhaps had a couple of years ago. But yeah, she's amazing, and I would always. She's always there, and I think that's the thing when you've got, regardless of if you're a cat or a dog person or a guinea pig person or whatever, if you're used to having animals in your life, it's a constant that gives you a comfort without having to have anything in return, so to speak. We don't need to have a conversation back. We just take our energy from them, and they take their energy from us as well. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I took Ruby a lovely walk this morning, and Rosie came with me, and she was like, she's 12 now, so she's like, I don't want to go walk, and she sulked all the way around because I was making her go out in the fresh air. But Ruby was happy, I was happy, so we just ignored Rosie and just said, come on, let it go.
Do you?
So, Chris.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, Elaine, do you use stories in promoting your business at all?
When I tend to on social media, I will write something on social media. When I'm actually speaking, I tend to put little anecdotes in, that sort of thing. But I've never really done like a full 2-hour coaching session as a story or anything like that. But I think yeah, they're very, very important because they've got to be relatable, and people can relate to any sort of stories. I remember when I was younger, when I was in primary school, we had a head teacher called Mr. Batty, and every Friday assembly was his story time assembly, and he used to tell us a story. It was generally a fable or something like that, perhaps a biblical story, and he always told us an amazing story with a meaning in it. So we always got a lesson, and a lot of those stories he told, I suppose that's what got me in what I'm doing and how I do it, how I can relate everyday life into a story behind it, a meaning behind it, a lesson, a learning, something like that. So yeah, it's always been quite important to me. I love a story. I used to have an uncle, my uncle Derek, bless him, and he used to be a brilliant storyteller and joke teller. He always used to make his jokes last 3 million times longer than they needed to.
Yes. Yeah, stories have many meanings, and part of the skill of storytelling is working out, which meaning are you wishing to communicate through this particular telling of this story. And there isn't a right or a wrong answer, but particularly if you're facing outwards and you're marketing a business, you want people to interpret the story in your way. And I mean, it's up to them whether they agree with you or not, but that's really quite an important dimension, particularly using stories for promotional purposes.
Do you have a story about how you got into coaching, Elaine?
How did I get into coaching? I used to be right. Back to Mr. Batty. My the school I went to, the motto for the school was Ik Dien, which is I serve. And I was such a goody two-shoes at school that I took that throughout my life. And I think I have always been of service in one way or another. And going through different jobs and careers, from the civil service to beauty therapy to cosmetic sales. I got involved in cosmetic sales, and the personal development in that was phenomenal. But I also got involved in helping women to build their businesses. So I suppose that the sort of story there is helping women to earn an extra £30 a week for the weekly shopping, or earn an extra 500, 600, £1,000 a month so that they could leave an abusive partner, or make plans for the future, pay for the kids, and that sort of thing. So it was always, so I suppose, finding other people's stories and helping them change their story, change their path, and develop into that. And then I transitioned, trained to do life coaching, and all the other bits and bobs in between that I do.
Yeah, because part of coaching is about getting people to change their stories, isn't it? Their internal dialogue. And could you talk a little bit more about how do you help? I know you talked about your 3 key things, but is there anything else you can say about how you help people with that in terms of changing their story?
Yeah, I've just done a session on affirmations, and I think a lot of people think affirmations are amazing, which they are, and it's basically a story of words that you affirm to yourself. And those of you that are familiar with the coaching environment and personal development, there's a big thing that you should, in a morning, you should do savers, you should do your morning routine or whatever, and that should include gratitude, it should include affirmations, it should include meditation, blah de blah de blah. Some people love it, absolutely fine, not got a problem with that. Some people feel under pressure because they don't feel that they're going to be good enough if they can't do that, if they can't carry on and do that. So I'm all about making things fit and work around you. But affirmations, there's a lot of misguided understanding of affirmations, in that they think if you read or you work to your 10 affirmations or your 1 affirmation or whatever every single day and repeat it, that will come true. It probably will, but it's also got to align with the rest of your life. So if you've got a new affirmation, if you're working on an affirmation and you repeat it every morning, you repeat it at lunchtime, you repeat it on an evening, and it's on a recall, then that's fine. But if you've got an affirmation that you just say in the morning and you think that's it, it's going to work, you've also mindful that every other element of your internal dialogue is an affirmation. So if you're saying I'm miserable, then you're miserable. If you're saying I'm rubbish at that, then you're rubbish at that, and you are affirming that thought to yourself. So there's a lot about affirmations and about being able to be aware of your internal dialogue, to be aware of what you're saying to yourself, how you're saying it. Are you saying it with love and care and attention, or are you saying it in a self-depreciative way and totally putting yourself down and not being the best version of yourself, not being more of who you are? So yeah, affirmations, I think, is something that I am quite passionate about. Not the fact that people need affirmations, but the fact that whatever we say to ourselves internally is an affirmation. And very often that is a story in itself, because we may well say something like, oh, that always happens to me. Never, ever will I be able to do that. And you repeat the same story, you repeat the same thing that's happened and happened, rather than putting a break on that, looking at it from a different point of view, which brings gratitude into it, because that's the ultimate shifter. We need to be able to look at that internal dialogue and put the brakes on that and shift it and move it around so that we've got growth and development and a different story internally and externally.
It's certainly.
I think. Oh. Do you want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure this is the real, the deep purpose of coaching, because I'm sure somebody somewhere has written a book about affirmations and how to do them. Probably don't call it that, but and you could read the book and still find you can't do it. And this is where coaching comes in, because it's not just knowing the method; it's also working out how to get the method to work for you. And no one can write a book that covers all the whole array of human possibility. It's and it's that discovery of what works, a mutual discovery totally. In a way.
Yeah, and I've actually wrote a book on it.
Yeah. What's your book called?
No, I've got a book called 7 Steps to Self-Empowerment, which does go into affirmations, but I've also just finished writing a free ebook on affirmations, and it does include the fact of what you're saying constantly is an affirmation, and also making an affirmation, because sometimes the leap from if, say, you're using a women's example, I use my example, I'm a size 18. If I started to affirm and look in the mirror and say every morning I am a healthy size 12, my brain would clock what's in the mirror and go, no, you're not. So no matter how many times I said that, my brain would know that is not right. So what you have to do then is look for an intermediate. So it's like, I am working towards, or I am finding ways to become. And then that gets your brain to think, all right, yeah, we're not actually taking the mick. We're not being horrible to ourselves. We're looking for alternatives. So it's a huge subject, internal dialogue, and how we speak to ourselves, right from in utero right up to current day, but it does all stem from a lot from childhood and how we were spoken to and how we observed our world around us. So I was very fortunate. I had a very loving childhood. I had an amazing set of teachers in primary school, which sort of set me up to have a more positive outlook and be able to help lots of people.
Yeah, I think what you were saying before about it has to, you have to set up that immediate that's gonna actually feel true to your brain, because otherwise you might, like you said, your mind's just gonna argue back at it and go, no, you're not. And I think one of the things techniques I like to do is it's inquiry and turning the beliefs around. So it's actually looking at it, is this true? So you know how you said before that we can repeat thought patterns to ourselves, like and then actually if we question it, it might not be true. So for example, if I'm saying all the time I'm miserable, then it's looking at that thought and going, well, is that true? Well, no, because this morning I was quite happy and I was walking down the so it's actually getting that evidence. And I know quite a lot of the time on this podcast, I think we talked about this last podcast with Suman, didn't we, Chris, that about truth, and are you just deluding yourself, or are you actually finding the truth behind it? Because a lot of the time it's actually about finding the truth actually, because if you are working towards something, then that is more true than your previous thoughts that's putting yourself down. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts further on that, Elaine.
I do use that. I think with limiting beliefs, we have to look at them from a very different angle. So I use the term of, does this serve? So when people are worried about something, or when people are looking at something that they don't agree with, does it serve? Does it serve to voice your opinions? Does it serve to have that negative internal dialogue and to be using language on yourself that you wouldn't use on outside to someone in the public. So I think, we need to look at things like that and use things like, is this true? Does it serve? Because then when you're questioning yourself, when you're asking a question and going forward, you're able to actually, it's a bit like you're checking yourself, aren't you? You're just checking yourself and saying, do you know, I've been lying to myself all this time. And like with limiting beliefs, one of the things that sort of winds me up, if you like, is the term limiting belief, because it gives the impression that it's hard work to shift them and that it's hard work to change that opinion. So it's a belief that does not serve. So when you've got a story that you're telling yourself that's repeating, you're carrying on through life doing X, Y, Z, don't term it as a limiting belief. Term it as a belief that does not serve. And then when you use the term, does this serve? Is this the truth? You can begin to soften the objective towards it, and you know that you're then able to make that shift and you're able to look at ways to change it. Whereas if you've got the term a limiting belief, you're giving yourself permission to not do anything about it, because you are limited by your actions. You are limited by the approach towards it or whatever. So I love language. I love how we term things and how we just express and how we look at, analyze how things are said. But we fall into habits and we use the same habit and we go with it all the time. I was watching television the other day, and there was a comment, and somebody had put, "I will try to sort this out." And I'm like, they shouldn't have put that. They should put, "I will aim to sort it out," or "I will sort this out," because try just means, do you know what? It's not going to work. It gives us the impression. The only place that a try works is in rugby, and that's it. And if everything else, it's just a void word, and it shouldn't be used because it's used as an excuse. So our language is very, very important, as you know, with storytelling, but it's also very important for how we receive it and how we perceive it, and what we take from the language that we use and how we interpret everything. It's really important to question, just like you said, Jemma, to question what may well have been the truth when you were 10 years old, 20 years old, 15 years old, 45 years old, is not necessarily the truth when you're 65 years old, when you're 30 years old, or whatever. But we hang on to the truth because it's what we've always had and we've always got. So it's about shifting that truth and finding a new truth.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, you've got some things on prompts for us and places, is that correct?
Yes. We've heard Elaine's story and discussed it, but I wonder how Elaine chose that particular story, or if it's one that she remembers, and we all have not one story, but many stories that we can use in our lives in all sorts of ways. I mean, I specialise in marketing and business development and so on, but they're not the only ways you can use stories. So it's always worth trying to find those stories. And the main sources are your memories, but also your day-to-day life where something might happen and you can make a note of it. And you may even be able to link it to previous stories. But one of the most effective ways of finding stories is through prompts. And I've mentioned Megan Macedo at least once in this series of podcasts. And
More than once.
She's a brilliant storyteller and also has a background in marketing, so she sort of rings several bells with me. And every year she does an annual writing challenge. And the challenge is to write 21 stories in 21 days. We get weekends off, so it's just weekdays. And we've just started the challenge in the last couple of weeks. And I've done it twice before, so I've already produced 42 stories, so I'm aiming for 63 now. And who would have thought I had all those stories? And yet I'm still finding, with relative ease, in fact it gets easier, I'm still finding new stories. So that's really the first part of what I wanted to say. But related to that is each year Megan has a theme. So there's people all over the world. I think there's probably about 50 of us dotted around places like Australia and America and all over Ireland. And the overall theme for all of us at this time is place. And that was one of the things that attracted me to doing it a third time, because one thing I've noticed from listening to a lot of people's stories is that they're often disconnected from the place where they happened. It's and it's easy if you're telling a story about some emotional experience and so on. Your focus is on that, and you're not thinking about where did this happen? So very often I don't know, is this taking place in Birmingham or Sheffield or Newcastle on Tyne, or, it could be anywhere, somewhere overseas, who knows? And unless somebody actually mentions it. But it's not just mentioning it as well. It's finding those little short images that makes the place real. And it gives the story context and I think weight, and it helps the audience to enter into the story. So, for example, 2 days ago, I wrote a story about my life in a student house in Newcastle upon Tyne in the 1970s. So one way I describe the house is, the sort of student house where you walk past and there's a dining table in the window with a bottle of ketchup and a bottle of Sarson's vinegar on it. It's there every day. And it sort of screams, students live here. But it's that sort of image that helps you to enter into it. And one bit of feedback I got, actually I think it was from Megan, was she likes the way that my stories often dwell on food, which I hadn't noticed.
They do.
And a mention of non-brewed condiment was particularly apt and telling, according to Megan. So I'm having great fun writing stories. I've written a story that begins one day before I was born, with Queen Elizabeth II's first visit to Sheffield. She was born the day I was born. She was here the first time the day before I was born, and I've seen a video of that event, and my mother missed it because I was 11 days late, and I was never allowed to forget that I was 11 days late, which made her miss the Queen. And so I built a story around that. I've mentioned Newcastle. Yesterday I wrote a story about the changes that I've observed in the city centre. And the main location in that story is actually Meadow Hall, which is a sort of centre of power that's really having a not terribly positive effect, not just on Sheffield city centre, but on centres all over. But that began with the war and the flattening of the city centre in the Blitz, and I saw the rebuilding. I didn't know when I was a kid that this is what it was, but I saw the empty spaces and the rebuilding that was going on in them. I can remember where Atkinson's was before Atkinson's was there. So, and it looks like it's been there forever. And then the hole in the road, and that had a lot of meaning for people in Sheffield. It was great, they loved. And then they dug it up and took it away and replaced it with a tram station. And just me observing those changes in the city and the impact that building Meadow Hall and the super tram had on the city centre, and then the changes that have happened since with the millennium, and the changes that have been happening at this time of the pandemic. and what future we might be looking to. And that, I think, holds together as a story. So those are my two things, the use of prompts to inspire new memories and new stories, and the use of place to give your story sort of grounding. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my mum actually came home the other day and brought out 2 books about the area of Sheffield that we live in, and they'd been written by people that had found pictures of different parts of the area, and then kind of seen that now they're not what they are now. So it was like the mosque used to be a church or a chapel, and then there was like there was a cinema around the corner, like, that's not there now. And it was really fascinating to just kind of see the history of where you grew up, but you just kind of go back even further, to see how a place has evolved, and how there was parts where there was houses, and then there's now no houses there. And it's like I don't know, a place can be very fascinating, and it can say a lot about the people as well, and how things change in life. Yeah,
I think when you've just been describing that, when you said about your story, and in my mind, before you actually said Meadow Hole, I was like, it's got to be the hole in the road, because it's just, I remember getting lost in the hole in the road when I was younger, because it was just like, I used to go to town with my mum on a Saturday morning, and it was like, I don't know which entrance we're going to come out of, so that doesn't mean I don't know which shop we're going to go to, but always remembering the fish tank. And then as I got older, meeting my friend at the fish tank before we went to the pub on a Saturday night, and then it was just an amazing place, and as far as I know, no other city had anything like that. So it was ours, and it was pride. And I love to look at the artwork of Pete McKee, to be taken back to different places, and he encompasses a story in his artwork, and then you can go into your story from what he's painted from around Sheffield. So I love that, and it's made me want to write some stories, actually. Chris, it's made me want to start writing.
Well, I think it's Pete McKee, who's a part of a band called the Everly Pregnant Brothers. I don't know if you've come across.
I don't think he's in it now. I think he was one of the original ones.
Yeah. Well, there's videos from when he was involved, and they have a song called "Oil in Road," and they got escalators because of your tired legs. You couldn't go down the stairs; your legs would be too tired. And he's going there with his nanan to town, and there's little Lego, and it's Lego figures. It's wonderfully done, and I attached that to that particular story. That's cheating a bit. You're not supposed to add other people's videos to them, but I've done anyway. Well, it's not been forbidden yet. I'll attach it to the. It's really funny, and I'm going to listen to more of their songs. Actually, they're very Sheffield. And in my story, we walked to the first floor in the library on Surrey Street, which is the big central library in Sheffield, and they had a massive model of the town centre as it was going to be, with Oil in Road in the middle of it, and made out of, I think it must have been white card or white plastic, and being built up, and it was amazing how, because they'd rebuilt various shops. They built Cocaine's, which is around about where Argos is now, and it had a ramp down to the basement from the pavement, and what fascinated me as a child was that the whole of the oil was put there and to link up with things like that ramp. So they sort of prepared the city, and then they lowered the. I think they used 4 helicopters to lower the hole into that square, and then they linked it all up, and there it was. Something like that. Um, I'm just trying to think. How long ago was it? Did they dig it up or fill it in? I'm not quite sure. But they, um,
You could wonder, there could be all sorts in there, couldn't there? There could be like all sorts of lost stories of Sheffield inside the
there
whole
be
building.
two enormous skeletons of fish.
Yeah.
There was a fish tank. This vast fish tank was a big attraction to begin with, and then gradually the numbers of fish declined, and the remaining fishes got bigger, and eventually there were these ugly grey monsters. Sort of. And do you remember it, Jemma? I'm trying to think.
I don't think
No.
Because it was still here. It was still here when I came back to the city in 1990. So it must have been removed.
I was born in 1990.
Yeah. You'd have been very small when it went. Yeah. So you don't know anything about that. You won't know what to do if you've got tired legs. So
Googling now to see when 1994 it was filled in.
They filled it in, right? Yeah.
Part of the construction of the Supertram network.
But somebody said that they actually dug it up, put it on the back of a lorry, and drove it up West Street to where the Supertram goes underground down, and that's where the hole's gone. So believe that if you wish. Anyway, we better press on, and
I'm going to share
indeed.
a song.
You are.
So I wrote this song, but I got the idea to sing this one because Elaine told us that she was going to talk about the song Let It Go, and it just reminded me that I had a song called I Let Go, a different song to Let It Go, but the theme is obviously about letting go, but some of the lyrics go, I let go, I leave the past behind me. No need to show or prove what I have learned. It's always there, perfect timing. I ease on down this road that I have found, and I'll leave it quietly. I reach towards the life I know. It's right there waiting for me. So it's about letting go of the past and moving towards the life that's waiting for you, basically. It's this idea that if we let go of not limiting beliefs that do not serve, that there's this life that's waiting for us that's actually kind of like, I suppose, I don't know if you believe in destiny, or just even if it's just, something better, or just, something different. So that's what the song's about. So let me just... I'm ready to receive a gift that's on my heart, open wide. I'm ready to release what's left of all I choose to hide. I let go and leave the past behind me. No need to show or prove what I have learned is always there, perfect timing. I ease on down this road that I have found, and I leave it quietly. I reach towards the life I know. It's right there waiting for me. Yeah, it's always been there waiting for me. Yeah, it's always been there waiting for me. Help me walk through the door. Don't let me down. Don't let me down no more. Ooh. that's just a shortened version of the song.
Well, thank you.
Right.
And one thing that is interesting me at the moment is how did you choose the music for the song? How did that come about? What were you trying to express through the music?
Yeah, so the music, I mean, when I go to the piano, I just or keyboard, I just play. Basically, I didn't learn keyboard or piano when I was younger, which is strange because my mum is a piano teacher, but I just learned through going to, because we have a piano and a keyboard, so I just went when I was younger and I would just play around with chords and just try things out. So I suppose I just sort of made it up, basically. It is, I must say, that the music is quite similar to a couple of songs that there's a chord sequence that's quite popular in certain songs, and I do think it is sort of similar. So I've been trying to work out how I can sort of make sure it is unique enough. I've not recorded the song yet, but I'm kind of thinking, does it sound too similar to certain songs? I'm not sure. But yeah, it's I just sort of the feeling that I was trying to express at the time. I remember I was going to a lot of retreats, sort of spiritual events, and doing a lot of personal development and things. And this idea of letting go was a big theme, and this sort of detachment, what Elaine was talking about before. And I think I just wanted to express that in a song. And it just came out really quite quickly. And what I wanted to talk about was the slight musical change that happens. So you've got the sort of I suppose the kind of uplifting chord progressions, and then it goes into, so it goes from that bit into a slightly different, and it's a bit like I think it, in certain songs in musicals, because I'm quite inspired by musicals because I did musical theatre, and a lot of the time they use the music to show a different mood, and I kind of think of it as like, so there's like the build-up parts, and then there's parts where you can maybe even imagine if it was in a film, you might have some, they'd slow it down, or there'd be the trees kind of just moving in the wind or something, and it kind of, in that part, I say character, it's obviously I'm speaking as myself, but if it was a character that was singing the song, she's saying something different. So in the rest of it, it's just, I let go, I leave the past behind me, and then that bit, she's saying, help me walk through that door, I don't want to doubt anymore. So it's almost like a prayer in that moment. Maybe she's saying it to some divine being, or it might be that she's saying it to a friend. It's evoking a different kind of emotion. It's not just this sort of declaration. Does that make sense? So yeah.
And another thing that interests me about this, Jemma, is there's the emotion that younger Jemma experienced when she was writing that song, and there's how you're feeling today singing that song. Do you find that that's a sort of dialogue almost between two people, or do you find that you can enter into younger Jemma's mind at the same time? How does that work, particularly as you're the writer?
It's very fascinating, actually, that you say that, because the other day I sang a song. I mean, this one wasn't so long ago, so I don't think there's that much difference in the sort of the Gemmas. Well, there will be, but I think I'm a lot further along in terms of letting go than I was when I wrote it. It's just kind of like, sometimes you write things to to get to that point. It's almost like you write it as a declaration, but it might not be there yet, but it's like an affirmation, I guess. And when I was singing a song the other day, what I was mentioning it, I actually wrote that at 14. So I actually did have a dialogue with my 14-year-old self. I actually was moved to tears quite often when I sing this particular song, because not this one that I just sang, but another one called Happiness Inside Your Heart, or Love Is Here. It's kind of got two names, but I think my ability to be able to talk to her through a song, because she wrote it. I didn't write it at 30 years old. It's a 14-year-old wrote this story and song and message, and it's so powerful for me right now, because it's even saying, it's okay, happiness is there, love is here, you can find it inside your heart. And I think, just having that, just even having that song and to go back to when I feel a bit down, and then to have my younger self sort of singing to me, love is here. It's like, okay, I'm not going to worry about. And it's sort of as well, it gives it meaning, because it's like, it's on, I guess, I mean, I don't have any children, but Elaine can sort of talk about, a lot of people say when you have a child that your whole life becomes different, because you're doing it for that person instead of yourself. It's like what James was saying, what is it for? He, in a previous episode, sorry, we had James Dand on, which you can go and listen to. And he was, in his story, he talked about the question, who is it for? Why are we doing these things? So I think sometimes even having that thought of doing it for my younger self rather than just myself now, it can bring a bit more meaning to it.
I think that's really interesting, actually, that your younger self was like just pops up to say, do you know what, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I think as that, we know that innately as babies, as children, that is how we grow, and we trust that the world has got our back. And it's only as we mature, and use that term loosely, it's only as we mature that we let that negativity come in, that we let that fear and that worry and those concerns come in. Whereas if we did listen to our young girls, my daughter giving me a lesson at 5 years old, you giving yourself a lesson at 14, do you know what? Just trust everything will be okay. And it's that simple. We don't need to complicate our lives with the stuff that is external. We just need to trust and see that everything can and will carry on.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wondered to what extent the same applies to someone else's song. So I remember my goddaughter's kid brother was learning the clarinet, and he was playing, I think it was the Skyboat song. I can't remember how it goes, but the Over the Sea to Sky, that one. And he played the tune, and I said to him, why don't you read the lyrics and then try and express the emotion in the lyrics in the music? Because he was playing the tune properly, he was hitting all the right notes in the right order, and it was amazing. It was completely transformed his performance. It was as soon as I don't know how he did it, but through the clarinet he was actually able to express the emotion of the song, so it is possible to pick that up from the music. And I'll just add that that's also true of storytelling. Because if you think you're telling the story, and if you imagine alongside of that story where the music would be for a song, there are the emotions that you're wanting to evoke for your audience. so that when I get to this point, I want the audience to feel happy. At this point, I want them to feel sad. At this point, I want them to feel hope for the future. And if you know that and rehearse that, that makes your storytelling more compelling.
Yeah, it's that journey, isn't it? The emotional journey. Yeah, it's about the emotional journey of the story and how you take the listener, into different parts so that they're going. Sorry, I'm not explaining this very well. But yeah. Okay.
Well, I think that brings us close to the end of this particular podcast. Elaine, if people want to find out about your work, how should they go about it?
I've got a website, which is elainemitchell.co.uk. Keep it simple, keep it into my name. I've got a Facebook group, which is Elaine Mitchell Empowerment Coach. And then I work a lot with women, and I've got a Facebook group called Inspiring Women. And on that, we do group coaching. We hold regular group coaching events and personal development, and it's just a space for women to inspire and be inspired. So everybody can post what they're wanting, obviously within reason, and it's just a place for women to chat and be inspired by normal people, just by their peers and everything like that. On that group, I have group coaching, which is the third Monday of each month, and also a personal growth and well-being event, which is the second Thursday of each month. So it's quite an active group for people to be involved in.
Thank you. And Jemma, what's new or what's old?
Yeah, so if you want to work more with me, then you can join my coaching, which I do on the fourth Friday of the month. Running at the moment, I have Finding Your Voice in 2021 sessions. I have lots of other coaching stuff going on as well. So if you want to go on my Creative Hearts pages, they're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. For Facebook and Instagram, it's Creative Hope. Creating a new one then, creativehearts.coach. And I also do one-on-ones.
All these links will be in the show notes, so do follow them and find out what's going on. In the meantime, my regular event is on second and fourth Thursdays at 2 p.m. on Zoom. I run Telling Stories, Making Business. You can come along, hear a business person tell a story, and then take part in a discussion of that story, which usually goes on for 30 to 45 minutes. And it's a great opportunity to do some in-depth discussion of a story. I also coach in storytelling, and if you want to know more about that, contact me through whatever route you found this podcast on. So, thank you, Elaine. That has been, and Elaine told me to use this word, awesome. And also, Jemma, you've been awesome too, and you're going to play us out.
No, thank you.